welcome you to the inaugural BW People Dialogue. Uh, BW People is an HR community, has become the homepage of the professionals in the HR domain. It is a CXO community. And in the inaugural episode, we have somebody who understands the people issues, organization issues, who understands the future. And today we are going to talk to Mr. S.V. Nathan, who's a partner and chief talent officer at Deloitte India. Welcome, Mr. Nathan. It's a brave new world. We're talking to you today in the context of pandemic. The last 18 months have been impacted by pandemic. First, let me welcome you to this BW People Dialogue and ask you, how have been the last 18 months for you, both personally and professionally?
First of all, Dr. Batra, it's a pleasure to be with you, and a sincere thanks to BW for taking this very important subject to hand. So thank you very much. So you asked me how the last 16, 18 months have been for me. It's a period of discovery for me personally. I discovered parts of my life that I've never visited. I made friends with people I never knew. I even sat in places in the house that I never sat in. I never spent time in the veranda of my house because that's not my work spot. Today, they are my favorite spots. I started reading things I would never do. I spend more time with my family as I've never done. I've always felt a lot more connected. At the same time, there is a sense of I would say a certain loss of a certain connect. There are people that I speak to, yes, but somewhere it's not the same. I do all these virtual hugs, but there is nothing like a nice handshake. There is really nothing like a bear hug with a friend who you have met after a very, very long time. Sitting in a room speaking to somebody over a cup of tea is far more valued today than in a virtual world where we are all sipping our own teas, and it's kind of different. But the last 16 months has taught me a lot, and it's also taught me the value of friendships. This is also the time we have started to reach out, help out both individually as an organization, and we have helped a lot of our people. There have been losses, Dr. Batra. People have lost their nears and dear ones. So empathy is very, very high up on top. And the one medium that I really thank that we seem to have come to a good spot is really the technology medium. Today we are all here. We are able to speak to each other. Just imagine if it had happened 10 years ago. It would have been chaos. So very grateful. And in the moment, you ask me how I am. I am very happy, very grateful, and very, very in the moment, because I'm now learning the value of how to stay in the moment. So back to you, Dr. Batra.
Thank you so much. The last 18 months, as you said, has been a mixed spot. It's been a mixed bag. There's been loss of lives and livelihoods. However, technology has helped us carry on with our work and life in an efficient way. But you're right, I keep saying, while we're in the 3C economy, collaborative, contactless, and compassionate economy, the value of human touch will go up because we long for that interaction, that social interaction, that human touch. And also, you're right, we learn to be more grateful for our lives, for our health, for our family members, and also to be in the moment, to be mindful, to be giving our best at this given point of time, given the uncertainties of life. Now, let me focus to what we've got together to discuss. The way we live has changed, the way we work has changed, the way we interact as professionals has changed, the way we interact as colleagues has changed, and the work from anywhere, the virtual office, the work from home culture has come about. If I told you that all of us would work from home 18 months back, you wouldn't believe me.
True.
We wouldn't comprehend that. Today, we accept that, we find positives in that. So tell us, what are the top three changes in the workplace of today?
So top three changes. First, I have found we have got more flatter as an organization. So people are able to really cut across the clutter of the various designations that we have. So I think that's been the big one. The second one is the one about collaboration. Today, we live in a world where you would expect that people would be supervised. From supervision, it's got more to collaboration. Earlier, we used to have a lot of training programs teaching people how to collaborate. Today, it's almost intuitive. You cannot live in this world if you do not collaborate. If there are people who wish to ask because they have a certain doubt, they don't really necessarily go to their own managers. They check with all people who are around as if it were just normal for them to do, and they will work with each other, get that done. I think that's a very big one. And the third one, which I think is very important today, is this whole thing, and you mentioned this once, is about compassion. Compassion comes in different ways, understanding people's needs. The whole move that we have towards a virtual world and tomorrow into a hybrid world is going to be working in this whole notion of how will compassion and empathy play a role in the way that work gets discharged, work gets done. And if somebody says, hey, listen, this is a better time for me. Earlier, people would be hesitant even asking that question. Today, it is perfectly okay for people to say, this is it. So I see those three C's as the kind of change that has happened today.
Beautiful. My editorial colleague Vasudha Mukherjee is also here, and she'll join us in a conversation. And you interact with Sugandh and Resham. They may also join at some stage to ask you a question.
Sure.
But let me focus the shift to talent. Now, the war for talent has only accelerated.
Yes.
Tell us, for knowledge organizations, first we'll focus on organizations like Deloitte, which are knowledge organizations, service organizations. People is the product, people is the core around which you build everything. So tell us, what has changed in terms of how we approach talent acquisition, and what are the top trends in terms of talent acquisition we see across sectors?
So I think across sector, one thing which is very different today is this whole notion of the workforce of today is loyal to the extent to which their aspirations are met. So therefore, talent acquisition people who are the hiring managers start to look at what is the aspiration of this particular individual. Earlier, it was a gap between, hey, this is a skill that was required, so I'm going to fill this particular skill. And so that was kind of easy. Because today, at a subliminal level, you got to also check what's the aspiration of this person. So that's a fundamental shift. Not everybody can get this right, Dr. It requires really a trained mind to really ferret out what is the true aspiration of an individual. What do people require at work? That needs to be understood by every hiring manager. Also, between what you say you are and what you do when people come on board, if there is a difference, people will vote with their feet. So you got to be very careful. You got to not only understand the lay of your own land and pick right horses for courses. So you will have to go to the right talent pool, get the right people, not because this is the easiest, but because that's the one that's going to work for you. The third one that I'm going to speak about is known but not practiced very well, Dr. Batra, which is all about equity and fair play. Today, when people come on board, they look at what is the cost plus model. which is, okay, the person was earning X amount, so let me add another 20% on that and give that. What will happen is, then that's called a cost plus. The other one is called a value fit, which means every job has got a certain value. So you bring that person at that particular value. Because if you bring a person and they discover that somebody is getting paid far more than what they are getting paid for the similar kind of work experience, they are again going to leave. So we got to be careful there. Also, if you bring somebody who's really expensive and people don't see value in that, then forget that person leaving and an organization having a bad experience. People who stay in an organization, they will start to believe that they have not been, the organization not been fair with them, and they've been in court cheated. So there are a lot of things that they got to look at when people come on board. People fundamentally join organizations because they want two things. First, they want to learn. Second, they want to grow. If you can find a way within an organization that people can learn, because there you're really feeding what is most important for an individual long term, which is their minds, and growth, which is the person must feel a sense of accomplishment. So if we manage that, I think talent acquisition would have done a human's role in really shaping the culture of an organization. So I see this as becoming more important, and not that they did not exist before, except that the accent on this has become far more sharper today.
No, how have the expectations? You already talked about the fact that people join to one, learn, and second, to be valued, and that value manifests itself in many ways. How have the expectations changed of the employees over the last 18 months? And what are the changes that have been induced by the pandemic? You alluded to some of them, but give us a more deep dive into this.
Okay, so one, if you look at the whole thing through the pandemic, I think people are looking at organizations which are caring organizations. That is going to be a big pull. I did speak about this earlier as well. I think people are the workforce of today is going to be loyal to the extent to which their aspirations are going to be met. That has become far more sharper today because of the surge in opportunities. Now, let me explain that a bit. When the pandemic started, then everybody froze. They wanted to hang on to the jobs that they had. So the normal attrition, and particularly in the knowledge industry, was say X%. In the first 6 months to a year, that dropped down significantly because people were really worried what would happen. Today, everything has kind of opened up, and people have started to hire. There are a lot of businesses coming in, and therefore people are rushing in. So people are prepared to take a risk as well. So earlier, I had to worry because now I have to work from another city. Organizations are getting to be more comfortable that you could stay in any city, any place, any town, and you could still be discharging the duties. So the propensity to change, which earlier used to be a circumstance of can I make the change to another city, that has dropped dramatically, if not almost vanished in some industries. And therefore, they are more willing to take a chance and say, I'm willing to move to another organization. I'm willing to migrate organizations. I don't have to migrate my towns and cities that I'm working. I think that's a significant one. Also, is the organization doing everything in its power to help me be a person who can learn over a period of time? I think that has changed. The third one is aspirations have taken center stage, and employees want to look beyond their own well-being. They're also wanting to look at the well-being of what is happening around. In the pandemic, people have started to understand the value of whom am I working for? Why am I working for? which is the whole notion around purpose. And the third one is, do I feel accomplished in whatever I'm doing? And the third one is important because if I don't feel accomplished, if I don't feel a sense of worth, then I would change. Earlier, it would all get passed over. Today, I have a bit of time to think this through. Why? Because in a virtual world, you're a lot more with yourself. And at this point in time, there are several things that keep happening. Even a small conversation, post that conversation, there is some residue in your mind, positive or negative. And therefore, those are the ones that help people make that crucial changes. So, who, why, what, the kind of accomplishments that I have, and of course, the nature of how the job is changing, work is changing, workforce is changing. Last but not the least, the workplace and the way that is getting discharged is changing. All this kind of answer.
So it opens up a new talent pool for you because
Sure.
of geographical limitations. You and we couldn't hire them, but now it doesn't matter whether you're in Indore or you're anywhere else. What matters is your ability and your willingness and the ability to be able to contribute. So clearly the talent pool has been widened, right? Now there has been a lot of chat about the future of the office space. What is the relevance of an office space? What should office spaces be doing? The word hybrid is used a lot, whether it's in education or in the context of work. What is your view on what the office spaces need to become? What are they evolving into? And again, in the context of what you just said, in terms of smaller towns, do you need to build a hub and spoke model in terms of offices?
I don't think there will be several hub and spokes. So you will not have just one as such. So distributed workforce, distributed offices are the way things are going to pan out. Um, I would estimate that about 70% would be work from home, 30% is work from the office or anywhere in some sense. An office is essential, Dr. Batra. An office is essential because that's the place that you go to so that you get that social connect which is so much required. Today, if you say the offices are open and you can go, you will find a lot of people rush in. Of course, there will be a fair amount of people who will stay back at home, but given an opportunity, they will go back to work because they want to meet their friends. All the conversation that they would have over tea at the cafeterias, people miss that. If you're all cooped up in your own house, after some time, it's like a pressure cooker. You just burst. So, do you need offices? Do you need large offices? The jury is out on that. I remember my favorite movie is a movie called The Devil Wears Prada, and so Anne Hathaway is standing in front of a building. It's a huge building, and she looks up, and the edifice of the building and the camera pans there. It's a huge one, and she walks through the office. I think the experience of an office is important, and therefore you cannot wish away an office. They will not be those tall edifices anymore, but you do need that. Offices are also a way to build a brand of an organization. So much as work will get done anywhere, you do need offices. There will be fewer offices, but fewer offices which are really big, but there will be distributed offices. And in the offices that are available, I think people will make an effort to make them very different from the past. The cubicles are all getting broken down. There are more community spaces, social spaces, places where people can collaborate. All, people who had even cabins that people had to themselves are giving way to workstations and conference rooms where people can kind of catch up. So I think that's the way that people are moving towards. What the pandemic has done is it has, in a way, democratized the way talent is being looked at. You talked about the talent pool. Absolutely. We don't necessarily have to think that if I'm in Bombay, then my talent pool has to come only from Bombay and maybe they are in the fringes, then I would still bring them in. And imagine if a person in the suburbs has to spend about 3 hours coming into work. Again, for a commute back is another 3 hours from the comfort of the home. And let's say a satellite office very close to in the suburbs that they are in, that's going to make a lot of difference to their lives. They spend less time traveling, their stress goes down a bit. Yes, you have an office. If you wish, you can go to the office and it's close by. So I think a fair amount of flex is going to come by for people. So in a hybrid space, and people are gingerly walking into this, wondering how this is going to pan out. But I'm not a clairvoyant, but I do believe that the hybrid workplaces will work for everybody.
Beautiful. Before I bring in Vasudha into the conversation, let me ask you, as the Chief Talent Officer, what is the aspect of your thinking in terms of recruiting senior talent change? Because people want to be entrepreneurs, they have aspirations, and now you don't need an office space. I know of my friends, batchmates who quit large consulting organizations to start fairly large entrepreneurial-led consulting organizations. So in terms of the way Deloitte or you are thinking about talent, especially at the senior level, what are you doing to kind of look at the future and keep them excited about the future? How are you creating wealth? Wealth creation has become very important for a lot of people. Say somebody who's in 45 or 50 believes that he or she has another 10, 15 years. So if they are turning entrepreneurs, how are you dealing with that phenomenon?
That's a very great question, Dr. Batra. See, earlier, there's an organization, it has a strategy, it has a whole host of things that are tactics, which will run for a whole year. And that's the way an organization will run. It will bring in people who fit their strategy. And they would say, these are the people who are going to further the cause. And that's the way organizations used to run. And without really talking about Deloitte in specific, today, many organizations are saying, can I build mini organizations around talent that's available? So earlier people talked about intrapreneurship, which means bring people inside, and people have tried various ways of doing it. And somehow there is always a falter at the altar of intention. So sometimes it just doesn't work. Some people seem to do it better. Today, people are saying, if there is talent, if in this particular place and in this space that they are really good, can we collaborate with them? Can we get them to be part of an organization? And can they create their own spaces in what they are doing? Organizations, mini organizations, but then they would be part of the overall. Wealth is normally built by the valuations in such organizations over a period of time. And different organizations do it differently. If you look at startups, they have their own ways of doing it. Larger organizations look at wealth creation not just from a rupees and cents standpoint, because part of wealth is the wealth which is around culture, the wealth of the companionship or the kinds of people that you work, the wealth of belonging to a particular brand. And I'm proud to say that, look, this is the company that I keep. And that's a tongue-in-cheek kind of stuff. But that's what people are also looking at. Today, they are building organizations around talent, regardless of generation. So people are not too very het up about whether they are young, whether they are experienced, but people building organizations over ideas of people. That's the big change that I'm beginning to see in the industry today.
Thank you. Let me at this point bring in Vasudha into the conversation. She's a young colleague, and she mirrors the aspirations of young executives. So let her ask you her set of questions and carry on the conversation. Vasudha,
sure.
Thank you, Dr. Batra, and thank you so much for joining us today on PW Dialogue. I would like to address the overarching question that we have here for today's dialogue, which is about loyalty, of course. And loyalty, it's a conceptual model, it's an emotional concept, whereas loyalty is or can be seen as a transactional relationship. So, is loyalty amongst employees a new concern for organizations, or has it always been a concern? And is it just a matter of controlling the rate of attrition, sorry, my bad, or is it more than that?
Loyalty at one point in time. Okay, let me just back up a little bit. I've been on the planet a little longer, so I have a view about loyalty. My first organization I served for around 12 years. The current one I'm serving for the last almost close to 17 years. And one thing that I see common in the experiences of my first job and what I'm doing today is, do I like being here? Are these the kinds of people that I really like? What are the kind of values that they stand for? And do I like to say that, yes, my values are close to the ones that are there with this organization? I don't think those. So you stay in organizations provided it is close to some of the values that you hold. Who do I work for? Do I believe that this organization has a larger purpose? So, for instance, currently I work for Deloitte, and if you look at what Deloitte has been doing for the community, it's huge. There's one day in a year we call as Impact Day. Tools down, everybody stops their work, goes into the community. That's a day that they spend only for the community. By the way, it's not like all other days they don't, but it's a clear demonstration of, so would I like to be part of this organization? The answer is yes. Today, do others, people who come and join us, do they see this? They say, yes, this is expected. And by the way, we expect it of every organization. What's the difference? Earlier, it always used to be a formula. Okay, A plus B equals C. And let's say C is loyalty. I cannot put things in the bag and say, if I do this, then I get loyalty. Loyalty today is almost a function of individualization, which means every individual in an organization, do we meet their aspirations? Some could have career aspirations. Some could have aspirations about the way that they are being treated. Some aspirations around, people don't speak about this, compensation. Are they people who are respected? And do we recognize them? So there are several things. And it's almost like mass career aspirational work that individuals will have to be invested in. Every person is very different. So you can generalize and say, okay, people, by the way, they work for a career. First, any person comes in, they work for the career. If they believe that somehow the career is at stake and somehow they feel that between the step that they are taking, an organization is taking a step which is very different, then if they feel out of step, they say, okay, this is not the place for me. 2, cause. What is the purpose of this particular organization? What is my purpose? The third one is, of course, community. And although there is a lot that has been said about it, people put this as a third, but the one that comes very, very much on top is the one around careers. So loyalty today is all about individuals' aspiration and organizations' ability to meet those aspirations, and on a one-on-one basis. It is not easy because you're looking at organizations big and small, and if people are able to do it, people stay longer. So do we see any difference between the then and the now? Then, let's say about 20 years and what it is today? Yes. Loyalty at one point in time was in bold letters, and there was a passage of time. I remember my boss used to tell me, be patient. Patient in those days means stay for at least another couple of years before I promote you. Today, patience is a very truncated word, function of time, n tending to 0. So it could be any month. So for a millennial, this patience could be no more than 6 months. Things are changing. So, and let's not forget, we are working in a market which is hyper heat. And I'm speaking about technology organizations. I'm speaking about a lot of organizations which require talent almost in a big jiffy. People do not worry about the build and transfer. They don't want to build and then transfer to the workforce. They are saying, let's get ready-made skills in the market and let's buy that. So the whole notion of the build and buy has altered this whole definition of what loyalty is towards people. So do I see this as a temporary? No, I see this as long-term, because you cannot take away from people the need for them to feel, yes, does it serve the cause for which I am looking at my own career? So back to you, Vasudha.
Thank you. And it's also interesting because we talked about how loyalty is so personal and it's tied in with one's aspirations, one's career choices. But then when people leave companies, sometimes it can be like companies can see that as a disloyal act. What would you have to say about that?
See, people leave because they have their own. So let me step back a little bit. Everyone has a meaning. Has a meaning to stay and a reason to leave. So let me restate that. A reason to leave and a meaning to stay. Everybody has reasons. They will have reasons. You didn't do this for me. You didn't do this for me. I didn't feel this. I didn't feel that. I didn't get this. They have a reason or reasons. But there are people who stay in organizations because they have a meaning to stay. People have found what it is to stay in organizations. If we invest a lot in that, then people stay. People who leave have served you and they have served you well. Even if they have served you for a limited period of time, organizations, we have to be very grateful to them because it's important. They invested in you. Howsoever long or short of that time that they have been with an organization, for the time that they have been with you, they have been loyal. And just because they leave an organization, they don't really become your enemies. They don't. For Deloitte, we see these people who leave us as colleagues for life. I still have a lot of people who call me up who have left our organizations. We get into a lot of chats, but I've not heard anybody speak ill about the organization. Because when people leave, they carry memories, good and bad. Over a period of time, the memories bad are equal to maybe an experience at work, maybe to do with the environment. You can find dozens of reasons for that. But at heart, when they joined this organization, many of them came with their eyes really nice and bright and saying, this is where I want to invest. So people who leave an organization, we should be respectful. We as an organization in Deloitte stay connected with them. We call them colleagues for life. We have a very active alumni network. And we have a lot of respect and regard for people who've been with us. So that's what I think of people who leave us. They are ambassadors for life.
Absolutely, and they're always going to be connected with your company, right? It's always going to be in the resume. It's going to follow them, and exactly. So they should not be seen as anything different. And also, in the interest of time, I know that we've gone a little bit overboard, but I would just like to ask one final question, and that is, what are the steps that Deloitte has taken to be ethical? I mean, you've already talked about this, but can you tell us a little bit more about what steps have you taken to be ethical and empathetic employer to retain good talent and ensure that loyalty among your employees?
See, for us, one of the fundamental things that we have is what we call as serve with integrity. Because for us, integrity is everything. Because if there are two things that we got to be looking at, one is serve with integrity means in anything that we do, right from an intent to act, there should be no difference. We've had several instances of people who have erred, and we have come down very heavily if it is anything to do with integrity. So people see that way. Deloitte is a 175-year-old organization. In India, it's 125 years. Organizations last longer because of the culture. So we continuously do this whole thing about training people, because we get a lot of people who come in from outside. Like if 20% of our people turnover every year, then it stands to reason we have to not only train the 20% who come in, then not to forget we keep growing. So we got to make sure that those people are acculturized. Last but not the least, even the people who stay with an organization, we have to make sure that those people are aware of the steps that we continue to take. So whole host of learning programs, forget all those. People watch not what you say, but what you do. So therefore, any place where people have erred on any of the values that we have, there's always a consequence. And it could be at the far end, even separation. So that's one. The other one is we also celebrate people who have displayed exemplary value-held actions on grounds of integrity. The other one that we have is take care of each other. So we go the whole 9 yards to make sure that not only this is a value that is stated as a shared value, we also have several stories to talk about how we have been able to do this. And stories where people are able to relate with. The time when there was a person who required a particular drug in the middle of the night, and how there is an admin who went up, there is a senior manager, a partner, there's a managing director of a pharma company who was woken up in the middle of the night, who then had to secure those vials, and it was rushed in the middle of the night to that particular person in the hospital. 3 months later, that person is very much back on his feet and is working today. These are war stories. When people hear these war stories, not from people who are at the apex, but from the people who have experienced it, then you can see a difference. Because people say, yes, I would like to work in an organization because this is not only ethical, it also goes down to making sure that between what they say and what they do, there's not a single gap. When you talk about serving with integrity and taking care of each other, we truly do that. So that's what I would say. You can learn on one side. There could be a lot of e-learning. There could be people standing in pulpits and whole sermons and pontifications. They don't work. But if they see an act of grace, of something that they have experienced, that goes miles. And that's what we encourage people to do.
Thank you. And also, I think I'm also going to add this. You have also made yourself so approachable. I mean, on your LinkedIn pages, you make these posts every day with like office truths, and where you kind of you poke fun of even the managers, teams, all alike. And it's very refreshing to see. And, just seeing an employer kind of do that kind of stuff can definitely make it easier for teams to reach out, to be honest about their own aspirations, about what they want. And I think that kind of communication is also very key in an organization. I have so many more questions, but in the interest of time, we will have to wrap this up. I know there was a question by the audience. Neelakan Patil, I really hope that we answered the question somewhat. I know you're talking about loyalty as granted. I hope we did answer this throughout the conversation. And if you want to revisit and rewatch this entire thing, you can obviously go back to our YouTube, our Facebook, our LinkedIn, or you can even ask Mr. Nathan on LinkedIn and see if he responds. Follow him on LinkedIn. It's a very interesting page. Dr. Batra.
The question that Nishkant asked was that, Mr. Nathan, a lot of people chase jobs, and he says that those get the promotion, those get the hikes, those get the opportunities. So, and in some way, there is reality in his question. So he wants you to address that. We'd love your comments on that.
Yeah, I've always felt that deserving people if you don't promote, some other company will. So this is a reality. And it's also a reality that any organization cannot promote more than a certain percentage of its population, because that's also part of the business reality. Everybody cannot be promoted.
Right.
So first, a deserving person must be promoted. Organizations have to, there is the unkahi, as they say, the unsaid. We will have to get better at listening to the unsaid. Organizations have to do it. We're talking about empathy. This is empathy. Listen to what is not being said by employees. Where organizations fail to do so, then you will find people voting with their feet. They will leave your organizations because others are just waiting to pick that person up. Perhaps what will also happen is they will also get promoted, and they will sit back and think, oh my God, I wish this organization had promoted me. I could have continued to stay back. Yes, that's something. I mean, this is almost like some people do a good job of it. And what I would say to such people who got promoted in other companies, don't hold it against an organization that did not do it in the first place. They would have their own reasons. And be kind to them, because as they always say, a career is a very, very long journey. And perhaps one day when you become a leader, make sure that you listen to that voice of that unheard, and maybe you become a greater leader that way, and your organizations get to be even better. So on that note, back to you.
My last question, I want to ask you, while in your role as a partner, as a chief talent officer, you also interact with a lot of CHROs, CEOs, CXOs. What do you think has changed in a CHRO job deeply, which we have not yet noticed?
So I can tell you, in the last 18 months, the one thing that has changed dramatically is the CHRO has come very, very close to the business. And the business has come very close to the CHRO. Earlier, there used to be tasks that people had to do in the role of the CHRO. But today, he or she discharges the duty as an extended arm of the business, because no business can do anything without people. That realization has come on either sides. I see that as a very positive and a big change that has happened. Empathy in an organization cannot be taught, it has to be experienced. Pandemic has managed to both experience this and teach us a thing or two.
Absolutely. I think HR leaders are always business leaders, but their understanding of the business has really become as good as any, because the CEOs and the other CXOs have worked very closely with CHROs in reimagining, resizing, reskilling the organization. And in the business continuity planning, which was a theoretical term maybe 2 years back, have really been that critical link to make sure that the business continuity planning keeps the organization on track to achieve its goals. So thank you, Mr. Nathan, for talking to BW People. BW People is a CHRO talent L&D community, and I hope we get to do more conversations. I want to ask you a personal question before I let you go.
Sure.
Now, you've been in this role for a while. You talked about you were in your first job for 12 years. What is your bucket list as you move forward as a professional, as an individual?
Well, I really want to do just two more things. One is, in some way, can I help people release their potentialities in any shape and form? If I can do that, at least to a handful of people, I think that would be a job very well done. So I think that is one on my bucket list. And at a personal level, I want to make sure that I spend a bit of time taking my wife and my family, just seeing the countryside. And India has a lot to offer. I want to make sure that which I see all around in a whole lot of WhatsApp messages, I'm able to visit these places and feel very happy that this is the country that is so rich unto itself, that this is the culture that I would like to experience, even if it is a small slice of it. So that's what I'd like to do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nathan. We wish you luck in your endeavors, in your role as the Chief Talent Officer at Deloitte India, in your role as a part of a family, as a community. We wish you luck, and I'm sure in this new brave world, we're all reimagining ourselves, keeping the good parts of ourselves, and adding on new layers that help us realize our own potential. We have to realize our own potential before we are able to help other people realize their potential. So self-care is equally important. And I believe that I think health and immunity have taken on a new dimension post-COVID. We're more conscious about it as individuals, as organizations. So we wish you great health, and I'm sure everything will follow. Thank you for talking to BW people. Both me and Vasudha have enjoyed having a conversation with you. Look forward to more interactions. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Vasudha. Thank you so much, Dr. Batra. Thank you very much. And yes, I did forget to mention that I'm writing a book. I hope to have this published in the second or third quarter for the coming year. So on that note, thank you very much, BW people. It's been a pleasure being with you this morning. And I hope to come back again and spend some more time at a later point in time. So thank you very much. Wonderful catching up with all of you. Thank you, listeners, as well.